I, Dr. Mandar Tilak, second year MCS resident in Department of Surgical Oncology, IMS BSU Varanasi. I'm going to present a seminar on this topic. Are left and right colon cancers to different diseases? Evidence from clinical, radiological, molecular, and treatment outcomes. I'm presenting this under the guidance of Professor Manoj Pandey, sir, head of the Department of Surgical Oncology. Colorectal cancer, though the term takes it is meant for both the right side, left side, ascending, descending colon, transverse colon, and rectal cancer as a term. It is not actually a one type of disease, rather it is two different diseases in the same organ. The behavior of colorectal, this is because the colon, that is and the rectum, they develop from two different embryological origins. Hence, they have got different blood supply, different molecular and immunological characteristics, and thus they would have different outcomes in the disease. As far as the right side colon would include the cecum from the ileocecal junction, ascending colon, hepatic flexure, and proximal 2/3 of the transverse colon. The left side would include the distal 1/3, transverse colon, splenic flexure, descending colon, sigmoid colon, and rectum. Embryologically, the right side colon is part of the midgut, while the left side is part of the hindgut. Right is supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, while the left is supplied by the left division of the middle colic artery and also mainly by the inferior mesenteric artery. There is definite difference between the left side and right sided colorectal cancer. This difference is in the molecular biology and mechanisms promoting carcinogenesis, in its clinical behavior, in its radiological findings, and its treatment response and treatment options. Colorectal cancer is a heterogeneous disease exhibiting a variety of genetic and epigenetic alterations. The genetic pathways alterations observed in colorectal cancer include the microsatellite instability pathway, the chromosomal instability, and the CpG island methylator phenotype, that is CIMP pathway, which is seen in microsatellite instability. That is, it is a part of the microsatellite instability pathway. As far as molecular biology and carcinogenesis is concerned, the right-sided colon cancer and the left-sided colon cancer differ in that in right-sided colon cancers have high microsatellite instability. They they are associated with hereditary colon cancer syndromes like SNPCC, that is Winch syndrome. They have defects, that is MSI, MLH1 and TMSH2. While the left side colon cancers have got high chromosomal instability, the hereditary cancer associated with left-sided colorectal cancer is familial adenomatous polyposis coli, and the chromosomal instability and genetic mutation that takes place in left-sided colorectal cancers includes KRAS mutation, APC gene mutation, NRAS mutation, CIK3CA, and P53 mutation. Now, in brief about the right-sided colorectal cancer, this study was in right-sided colorectal cancer. As I mentioned earlier, there is evidence of increase in mismatch, defective in mismatch repair genes. Then there is also BRAF V600 mutation. The deficiency leads to multiple mutations of single nucleotides in the genome and accelerates the accumulation of single nucleotide mutations and thus polymorphism. It is a hypermutated state. The cells have high immunogenicity and they express antigens. Molecular biology of the left colorectal cancer, as I mentioned earlier, includes chromosomal instability and KRAS, NRAS, and P53 mutations. The carcinogenesis in left colorectal cancer, it occurs in a specific pathway, that is, it is a multi-step genetic model of colorectal carcinogenesis. It begins with inactivation or deletion of APC tumor suppression gene. This is followed by activation of the KRAS homologue. Then there is inactivation of the tumor suppressor P53 gene, and ultimately this step-by-step process is from adenoma to step-by-step leads to carcinogenesis. This is known as the adenoma to carcinoma sequence. The deletions would also include the dysregulation of the WNT, activation of the WNT pathway, and also dysregulation of aurora kinases and polo-like kinases. These proteins are responsible for centromere assembly, duplication, mitotic spindle formation, and mitotic entry. Thus, dysregulation of these proteins would lead to entire genome chromosomal instability. As particularly found in the left side colorectal cancer is the KRAS mutation. This occurs in 35 to 45% of colorectal cancer. It is more common in left side colorectal cancer. KRAS mutations are commonly observed in codon 12 and codon 13, resulting in constitutively active RAS protein, which in turn activates the downstream pathways, leading to cell proliferation and increasing tumor cell survival. It is proposed that KRAS codon 12 mutation has got a much poorer prognosis as compared to codon 13 mutation. The importance of KRAS mutation is that it occurs more commonly in left-sided colorectal cancer. Hence, as I will mention later, left-sided colorectal cancer will be more susceptible to therapies targeted to KRAS, and also they are susceptible to as compared to that is therapies targeted to anti-EGFR pathway as compared to other targeted therapies. The differences in clinical picture between right side and left side colorectal cancer. The age, I'm sorry, there is a misprint. The age-wise, the right-sided colorectal cancers appear at an earlier age, while the left-sided colorectal cancer appear at a later age. The in hereditary-wise, the HNPCC syndrome occurs more in left-sided right-sided colorectal cancer, and familial adenomatous polyposis coli occurs in right-sided colorectal cancer. Left-sided colorectal cancer. Right-sided colorectal cancers are more common in females, while left sides are more common in males. The presentation-wise, right-sided colorectal cancers will present with lump in right iliac fossa, anemia, GI bleed. Then there is also difference between the metastasis, the recurrence, and the stage-wise prognosis, which I will go on in detail with each slide. Age-wise and sex-wise, as I mentioned earlier. Then, as far as clinical presentation is concerned, a bit in detail, they will present. They are more indolent. Therefore, they will present more. Right-sided colorectal cancers will present with a more locally advanced stage. They will have weakness, generalized weight loss, lump in right iliac fossa. They may present with intestinal obstruction. And as far as metastasis they are concerned, they present with advanced metastases more as compared to the left-sided colorectal cancer. Here I would like to mention that right-sided colorectal cancer present more with peritoneal metastasis as compared to the left-sided colorectal cancer. The left-sided colorectal cancers will present with altered bowel habits, diarrhea, constipation, rectal bleeding, tenesmus in rectal as seen in rectal cancer, and intestinal obstruction. These data I took from the various studies which were which I have mentioned over here. Then, as far as the difference in survival is concerned, the prognosis of right-sided colorectal cancer is worse than left-sided colorectal cancer. The median survival of patients in studies of the SEER database, it was found that it was 78 months for right-sided colorectal cancers and 88 months for left-sided colorectal cancer. However, here there is a difference that in early stages, the right side colorectal cancers actually have a better survival rate as compared to late stage, in which the left sided colorectal cancers have a comparatively better survival. The Mayo Clinic also conducted a similar survey of 26,908 patients with colorectal cancer, and that they found that the survival is higher in the left-sided group with 87.5% median survival. Out of that, the rectal cancers had the highest median survival of 101.3 months as compared to the worst survival of the right-sided colorectal cancers of median survival of 76.6 months. Again, as far as the stratification was concerned, they only found that there was a difference in the late stage group in which the left side had an advantage as compared to the right. In other similar study, they also found out that of 17,000 patients by Benedict et al., they found again that there was a slight increase in survival in left-sided colorectal cancer. Similar finding was echoed by a meta-analysis of 66 cases conducted by Petrelli et al. The differences in the site of the metastasis, the left-sided colorectal cancers tend to have liver and lung mets, and right-sided colorectal cancers tend to have more peritoneal carcinomatosis. Then, as far as the survival after metastasis and recurrence is concerned, again, it is the left-sided colorectal cancer which will have an advantage. This was shown by studies by Sasaki et al. And Holch et al. Then, I have already mentioned the hereditary colorectal cancer. Now, as far as the difference in pathological findings between the left-sided and the right-sided colorectal cancer, on colonoscopic examination, you will have on the right-sided colorectal cancers will tend to show a flat or ulcerated lesion as compared to the left side, which will present more as polyps, or multiple polyps, or a single ulcerated polypoidal region, or as a constricting lesion. Now, again, there is a difference, that is that for early cases, the diagnosis, there is less early, in comparing early diagnosis, left-sided colorectal cancers are tend to have a earlier be diagnosed earlier in colonoscopy as compared to right-sided colorectal cancer. As far as the pathological finding, the right-sided colorectal cancers have sedated adenomas, mucinous adenocarcinomas, and they also show tumor infiltration by lymphocytes because, as I mentioned earlier, they have got high antigenic state. The left-sided colorectal cancers will present as non-sedated adenomas and polypoidal. Yeah, this I mentioned just now. Then this early diagnosis is sometimes also difference in early diagnosis also reflects in difference in overall survival because the left side will tend to be diagnosed earlier. This was shown by studies by Brenner et al. And different studies by Brenner et al. And W.S. Atkins et al. Now, as far as the pathological difference here, I would like to highlight about the mucinous adenocarcinomas. Now, right side colorectal cancers have more incidence of mucinous adenocarcinomas and signet ring cell carcinomas. That is 10.7% versus 5% for mucinous and 1.4% versus 0.7% for signet cell side as compared to the left side. Now, mucinous adenocarcinomas and signet cell carcinomas definitely have got a poorer prognosis and they have got a poorer response to neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Hence, this would also reflect in the overall survival between these two groups. Now, as far as the pathology, another thing that in the left-sided colorectal cancer, you would get tubular adenomas and villous adenomas. In that, the villous adenomas, though uncommon, they have got a significantly higher potential of malignancy. Then radiological difference. The difference in radiological findings would be a right-sided colorectal mass, a diffuse peritoneal disease, and filling defects in barium studies are more common in the right side group, while structural growth with proximal dilatation and obstruction, more incidence of liver secondaries, and apple core appearance on barium studies are more common with the left side. Now, as far as the difference in treatment response between left side and right side colorectal cancer, there is no, as far as stage 1 and stage 2 is concerned, for overall for colorectal cancer, there is no adjuvant treatment. The difference lies in the adjuvant treatment in stage 3 and stage 4. The initial adjuvant treatment for all post-operative cases would be chemotherapy in the form of FOLFOX or CAPOX. Now, as far as the surgical outcomes, where the difference lies, this was shown by long-term analysis of the classic trial, which compared conventional versus laparoscopic assisted resection in colorectal cancer. There were total 794 patients randomized to laparoscopic or open group in 2:1 ratio. These were operated between 1996 and 2002. In the long-term analysis, the median follow-up was 62.9 months. There was no statistically significant difference between the open and laparoscopic group with compared to overall survival and disease-free survival. However, at 10 years, right-sided colorectal cancer showed an increase in propensity to local recurrence compared to left-sided colorectal cancer. This was 14.1% local recurrence in right-sided colorectal cancer versus 5.2% recurrence in left-sided colorectal cancer. The difference was 9.5%, which is statistically significant with a probability less than of 0.019. On multivariate analysis, they found that this significant disease-free survival was there. There was it is suggested that this is due to the absence of complete mesocholic excision and central venous vessel ligation in right-sided tumors, while in left-sided colorectal cancer, in whom a significant percent would include rectal cancer, there was TME done, and so there was better lymph nodal clearance. And this they are saying could maybe the reason why the local recurrence was higher in the right side where this was not done as compared to the left side where it had occurred. That is, better lymph node clearance was done on the left side. As far as the differences in targeted therapy of right-sided colorectal cancer compared to left-sided colorectal cancer. Now the initial adjuvant treatment, that is chemotherapy, is the same for right-sided and left-sided colorectal cancers, and it is according to the stage. However, the difference lies in the targeted therapy. Why? Because the right-sided colorectal cancers are having more immunogenic antigen presentation, and they are more immunogenic, while left-sided colorectal cancers have got more expression of KRAS antigen, and therefore there is effective anti-EGFR therapy available. The right-sided colorectal cancer, the the PD-1 inhibitor pembrolizumab and the PD-L1 inhibitor nivolumab, less responsive to the these right-sided colorectal cancer compared to the left-sided colorectal cancer, are less responsive to the vascular endothelial growth receptor targeted therapy. But they have got immunotherapy available for them. Now, the trial which showed the efficacy of immunotherapeutic agents in colorectal cancers which had MSI, high microsatellite instability. This was known as the KEYNOTE trial, in which 307 patients with microsatellite were present. These patients had high MSI status and defective mismatch repair gene mutation. The test arm was pembrolizumab. The control arm included either FOLFOX or FOLFIRI as the main therapy, with either bevacizumab or cetuximab in combination. The primary endpoint was overall survival and progression-free survival. The secondary endpoint was safety and ORR. These are the results of the test versus control. Here, the overall survival results are yet not, we haven't yet got it because this trial is ongoing. However, they showed that there is at 12 months and 24 months, there was significantly higher progression-free survival with pembrolizumab, that is immunotherapeutic agent, as compared to the control group. And also, the overall risk reduction was 43.8% with pembrolizumab versus 33.1% risk reduction with the other control arm chemotherapy. There was complete response in 11% cases, partial response in 32.7% cases, and the response duration at 2 years was also seen in 83% cases, which was all these results were significantly better as compared to the control arm. The inference was that in MSI positive cases, colorectal cancers, pembrolizumab has got better progression-free survival and progression-free survival and ORR as compared to chemotherapy alone or in combination with anti-VEGF and anti-EGFR status. Now, how would this reflect in the difference in treatment between left side and right side? Is that the right side tend to have more microsatellite instability. Thus, it is inferred that they will respond better to pembrolizumab. The other trial was known as the Checkmate 142 trial, in which trial was known as the Checkmate 142 trial, in which nivolumab was used in metastatic DNA mismatch repair deficient for MSI high colorectal cancer. It was an open label multi-center in PD-1 immune checkpoint inhibitor was tested. The inclusion criteria were adults, histologically confirmed recurrent or metastatic colorectal cancer. They had to be assessed for the presence of MS microsatellite instability. They had progressed or had been intolerant to one previous line of treatment with chemotherapy, either fluoropyrimidine, oxaliplatin, or irinotecan. The exclusion criteria included active brain metastasis or leptomeningeal metastasis, any uncontrolled medical disorder, a prior active malignancy, then the need for immunosuppressive dose, that is corticosteroid use, previous treatment with targeting T-cell checkpoint inhibitors, and also patients who had hepatitis B, hepatitis C, or HIV infection. If palliative radiotherapy had been used, it had to be completed more than 2 weeks prior to the study. The patients were given nivolumab 3 milligram per kilogram every 2 weeks until disease progression or death or unacceptable toxicity in the test arm. Not test arm were given nivolumab. The dose reductions were not allowed. Dose interruptions were allowed only when there was significant dose-related toxicity. Patients who had interruption more than 6 weeks were discontinued from the study. The tumor assessment was done with respect to RECIST 1.1 criteria at 6 weeks, 24 weeks, and thereafter every 12 weeks. In total, there were 74 patients. 54.1% had received more than 3 prior therapies. At median follow-up of 12 months, 23 out of the 74 patients achieved investigator-assessed objective response. That is, the objective response was assessed by the investigator using the RECIST criteria. The median duration of response has yet not reached because all responders are still alive and have a response of more than 12 months. The most common grade 3 toxicities included duodenal ulcer, acute kidney injury, and stomatitis. There was a mortality of 31.1% patients in this study. None of the death was considered to be due to treatment-related event, as per the investigation. The conclusion was that nivolumab provides promising and durable response rates with prolonged survival relative to the anticipated median survival in metastatic colorectal cancer. The safety profile of nivolumab is similar to other agents used. Now, as far as the targeted therapy in left-sided colorectal cancer, the left-sided colorectal cancers will have more KRAS mutations and therefore will have an advantage when cetuximab is given. The following are the clinical trials which were not differentiated between the left side or the right side, but which were differentiating whether the patient had KRAS antigen mutation or not. Then I will go to sub-analysis of the next trial in which there is differentiation between the left and right side results. Now the PRIME trial, panitumumab randomized trial in combination with chemotherapy for metastatic colorectal cancer. To evaluate the efficacy and safety of panitumumab, an anti-ER agent, infusional cancer, multi-center phase 3 randomized controlled. The inclusion criteria were patients with no prior chemotherapy for metastatic colorectal cancer, with age more than 18 years and 0 to 2. Then adjuvant therapy patient had included in the trial, provided that the disease recurrence occurred 6 months after completion of the adjuvant. The patients were not allowed to enter this trial. The primary reference, that is in the test arm, panitumumab 6 milligram per kilogram was given after randomization mutated. Thus, there were total 46 patients in the test arm and 550 patients in the control arm, mutation status of KRAS. The median progression-free survival was 10 months for the panitumumab plus FOLFOX group, while it was 8.6 months for the FOLFOX group only. This result was statistically significant with a probability of less than 0.02. And in median survival in months, overall survival was 23.9 versus 19.7%. It was not statistically significant. The probability was 0.7. The inference was that in mutant and in subset analysis, they found that if the patient had mutant KRAS, okay, not wild type KRAS, mutant KRAS, then the survival in patients who had taken panitumumab with FOLFOX4 was poorer as compared to those patients in which they had taken only FOLFOX4. That is, it was 7.4 months in the test arm while 9.2 months in the control arm. Thus, this may suggest that use of anti-EGFR therapy in mutant KRAS had actually a deleterious effect. The same thing was echoed in the stratified result of the median overall survival, which was 15.5 months versus 19.3 months in patients with mutant versus wild type KRAS, in which panitumumab with FOLFOX versus FOLFOX was used. The conclusions of the PRIME trial was that the KRAS testing is important in patients. It demonstrated that panitumumab plus FOLFOX4 as a combination was a well-tolerated therapy with significantly improved progression-free survival in patients with metastatic colorectal cancer with wild type of KRAS tumors. It also underscores the importance of KRAS testing in patients with metastatic colorectal cancer. The objective response was higher, and there was a trend towards improved overall survival with panitumumab. However, it was not that statistically significant. Now the next trial is CALGB SWOG 80405 trial. This is a study of patients with right-sided tumors, in which it was shown that right-sided. The other trials which showed improved results of cetuximab in KRAS positive colorectal cancer included CRYSTAL trial and also FIRE trial. Now the CALGB trial, it was SWOG 80405 trial. It was a phase 3 trial of FOLFOX or FOLFIRI with bevacizumab or cetuximab or both in untreated metastatic adenocarcinoma of the colon and rectum. The aim was to demonstrate, to examine whether there was a benefit in overall survival for cetuximab containing regimen compared to bevacizumab containing regimen, or compared to or whether a combination of cetuximab with bevacizumab was the best. The subjects were patients with metastatic colorectal cancers. The intervention was the patient was randomly assigned to receive first-line chemotherapy, that is FOLFOX or FOLFIRI, as per the investigator and patient choice. This chemotherapy was combined with either cetuximab or bevacizumab or a combination of both. A later on amendment was done in which during interim analysis it was found that the combination of both biological agents did not improve any survival. Also, in later on amendment, the accrual of this patients was only restricted to KRAS wild type mutation patients. This is a result presented at the ASCO June 2014. In it was shown that chemotherapy with cetuximab had an overall survival of 29.9 months and a progression-free survival of 10.4 months. The chemotherapy with bevacizumab had an overall survival of 29 months and a progression-free survival of 10.8 months. Thus, there was actually no difference between the survival rate in this analysis. However, there was a sub-analysis done differentiating the patients between left-sided and right-sided colorectal cancer, in which overall they found out that there was in the left-sided colorectal cancer, there was a median overall survival of 33.3 months, while in right-sided colorectal cancer, the overall survival was 19.4 months. With a hazard ratio of 1.5, this result was statistically significant. Now, when they subdivided this group to find out which drug was actually helping for the overall survival, they found out that it was cetuximab, in which in left-sided colorectal cancer, the median survival was 36 months, while in right-sided colorectal cancer, it was 16.7 months with a high hazard ratio of 1.87, and this result was highly statistically significant. Thus, according to overall survival, cetuximab had a benefit in left-sided colorectal cancer as compared to right-sided colorectal cancer. Bevacizumab also had a benefit in left-sided colorectal cancer as compared to right-sided colorectal cancer. However, the result was not that statistically significant. Again, this finding was echoed in the progression-free survival, where cetuximab showed a better progression-free survival in left-sided colorectal cancer as compared to right-sided colorectal cancer. Thus, the inference of this interim analysis was that cetuximab is having better response in left-sided colorectal cancer because they have a higher percentage of KRAS wild-type mutation. There's a summary of, I will summarize the findings. The difference between the left-sided and right-sided colorectal cancers in molecular biology will be the MS microsatellite stability, high immunogenicity and T-cell infiltration versus low immunogenicity, pathologically mucinous adenocarcinomas and signet cell cancers as compared to tubular and villous adenomas, then more occurrence in females as compared to males, and later stage of diagnosis in right-sided colorectal cancer as compared to left-sided colorectal cancer. The prognosis in right-sided colorectal cancer is better for early stage as compared to advanced stages, and they better respond to immunotherapy, while left-sided colorectal cancers better respond to anti-EGFR therapy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandar. The topic is open for discussion. Mandar, you can take your slide share off.
Yes, yes.
How many genes are differentially expressed between left and right-sided colon cancers?
Sir, in the right side colon, there is a micro.
How many genes are differentially expressed between left-sided and right-sided?
Sir, I didn't get question, sir. How many genes?
You didn't get the question. Mandar, you got the question? How you can tell me how many genes are differentially expressed? There are about 250 genes which are differentially expressed between left and right-sided colon cancer. Means either their expression level differs or their expression is absent in one or the other. There are more than 250 genes which are different in both the cancers. And that is one of the argument that is being given, that the left and right-sided colon cancers are molecularly different, and that is why the targeted therapies and the other therapies which are now coming out between left and right are coming out targeting different set of genes. So probably in the future the treatment of left colon is going to be different from that of a right colon.
Yes, sir. It's nice to actually. Thank you so for inviting me. Nice to the doctor has presented very well and really academic, because we surgeons actually got really busy with surgery for past 1 month. So good to get back to that activities.
Yeah,
we've been only thinking of surgery and post-op and pre-op for the last 1 month.
Yeah, we have also started theaters, but
yes,
with limitations, and slowly getting back. But we also thought that we will get back to the academic programs. It was going to be 2 days in a week, Thursday and Saturday. So just restricting it to 2 days a week, and rest of the time we'll be busy with surgery. Plus they also have to do their thesis and they have to focus on their research work also. But then teaching is an essential part of MCH program.
So, yeah. Quite tough for the PGs and for the MCH and all consultants, everybody, because they have to take extra precautions.
Yes.
And you being in the government setup, they have to take even more precautions, because they don't have all kind of patients are turning up. So
no, we have a very strict protocol. We are operating only COVID negative after testing. So that way OTs are not a risk for us, but yes, the OPDs are, because the OPDs are getting crowded.
So there are the relatives also coming with the patient,
Yes,
and
that's
of
the
course
reason.
your
That's the reason.
residents all managing OPD and taking care of the ward rounds, and they are getting exposed.
We
So
have
it's a tough time for everybody.
we don't allow the attendants without a COVID test into the wards. So for us, the patient and the attendant both are tested. So only when their reports are negative, they are allowed in. Otherwise, we keep them out. And the protocol is to keep patients into holding area for 48 hours, where strict PPE protocol is followed. Even the nursing staff and the cleaners, they have to wear PPE to enter that. Only when they are COVID negative, they are brought to the ward. So that way, it's a tough protocol, but then so far so good.
Sir, a simple, very basic question. We
Yeah.
all know that any patient with colon presenting with perforation become T4 and always has a very poor prognosis as compared to one presenting without perforation. So is there a difference in the left and the right side in the same thing when presenting with T4 with perforation in the emergency?
Yes, that is what has been seen, that the perforation rates are more common. Perforations are more common in left-sided colon.
But that will be the proximal colon which get perforated.
No, the perforations are more common in the left colon, actually. Sigmoid. Sigmoid is the commonest site for perforation. And the stage 4 of the left side has a better survival than the stage 4 of the right side. So cecal perforation versus the sigmoid perforation. The sigmoid perforation will do better than the cecal perforation. That has been documented, especially for the T4 disease. So in a T4 disease, the left tumors do better. In a T1 and T2 disease, the right tumors do better. And overall, it is the left tumors which do better than the right tumors. But that probably is because of inclusion of rectum into the left-sided tumors. Based on the embryology.
Probably because they have got...
they have a better survival.
And also because they also have an advantage of radiation therapy being available.
Yes, they have an advantage of radiation therapy being available.
So, sir, have you started doing the totally neoadjuvant for rectum? Like give the chemo first and then CTRT and then go ahead with surgery? Totally neoadjuvant.
If I have an operable case, I'll prefer to operate, because our experience with neoadjuvant chemo RT is very bad. Most of the cases where chemo RT is given, the disease becomes inoperable, or the fibrosis occurs so severe that it is almost impossible to get the lateral margins. So our experience with the neoadjuvant chemo RT is very bad. Probably the problem is with the delivery of radiotherapy at my center. That could be one of the reasons, because when I read the literature, it seems that it is a very ideal situation. But when we do it and we get in, right side, its lateral margins are so badly adhered, like you can't actually go in. Sometimes it's very, you won't find a place. Posterior will be fine, but then the moment you go lateral, there will be no place to go. So it is very difficult. And then we had a lot of perforations in post-operative, post-neoadjuvant chemorectums. I think in last 1 year, we had 3 cases which had a perforation, extraperitoneal perforation. And that makes it even more difficult for someone to operate. So the moment you cut the lateral wall, go anterior, and you find that the rectum is perforated and perforated and adhered. So we are having a little bit of problem with that. We end up opening bladders, excising bladders. We end up reimplanting ureters. So if I get a case which is operable, I'll prefer to go in and operate rather than give a neoadjuvant chemo RT. And we hardly are able to preserve sphincters, because the disease will not regress. Our disease is not regressing with chemo RT. So if I have to do an APR, I might as well do it ahead. Why then give radiation and then not being able to do even an APR properly? So we have had quite a lot of complications, surgical complications, and then difficulties in doing surgery. So that is why my personal preference is not to give chemo RT. But with the chemotherapy alone, there are a few patients who has responded very well. So those who respond will respond very well. Those who will not respond at all. So there you can try giving it for 6 weeks, 2 cycles, and see if you get a response, fine. If you don't get a response, go ahead and operate.
Sir, for us, because as you know, we have radiation people actually in the same building, and we give them constant feedback. So anybody with pararectal stranding or with lymph nodes in rectum, so we try to give them CTRT, neoadjuvant. We haven't come to the protocol of totally neoadjuvant, so we give them CTRT and follow up with the surgery. And what we have found that majority of our patients don't get that much of response, but we do get the trouble of having a frozen pelvis, and eventually your defect doesn't heal, your skin wound will open up, and it'll be going on for 3 months, whatever. So that problem we have, but in some patients we do get response, but surgery is tough after CTRT.
Yes, I have a perineal wound which is open for almost 6 months now. It's not
Yes.
healing. And I had a bladder which we had repaired, and it opened, post-RT bladder, which is not healing. That also, I think, just 6 months or more than that.
6 months, sir.
More
Over.
than 6 months. More than 6 months. It's
Yes,
not
sir.
healing. We went in and repaired the bladder, and it opened again.
Again.
Because the bladder is so friable that bladder is not holding the sutures. So we have a bad experience with that. And then these patients are on your head, and every day you have to console them. So one day they will come with Klebsiella, next day they will come with Pseudomonas, third day they will come with E. coli. You keep changing antibiotics, you keep washing their perineal wounds with hydrogen and saline. Nothing happens. It doesn't heal. So we have had a tough time with post-radiation.
So one more point, because we were discussing comparison between left and right. So if a patient comes to us in emergency with perforation or with peritonitis, and we find right colon with proximal ileal perforation or whatever, other than doing the stoma, for left, I would definitely just do a stoma and come out. Allow the patient to heal. But on the right side, I may even attempt tumor excision without anastomosis.
No,
I
for
don't know,
us,
sir, what
for
would
us,
you,
for us,
for the left side, I
irrespective
wouldn't
of-
attempt an excision.
We do an excision. We do an excision even for the left side
At the
as well
same-
as for the same type. And the need for a stoma, we probably decide upon the condition of the abdomen and condition of my repair. So if I am happy with my repair and the contamination is not much, I probably will not do a covering stoma. So there are a number of cases where we have done excisions and not done a covering stoma. And there are cases where we do a covering stoma, because that probably that decision is made on the table depending upon the degree of peritonitis and condition of the bowel, and how happy I am with my own suturings or my staplings. We normally don't use sutures anymore for colon. We use staples. We use a linear cutter, 2 linear cutter anastomosis side to side. So we have stopped doing end-to-end anastomosis for colon. We are always doing side to side with a linear cutter. And we have got very good results with side to side. Like, it's like a double barreling. You bring the 2 cut end together, go in the center and fire 1 linear cutter and fire 1 linear cutter over it. That's it. So 2 linear cutters we are using. And if you are not happy with that, you can bury the suture line with a seromuscular sutures. That's all you can do. And if you find that your mucosa, your serosa is friable, then probably you do a covering colostomy. And if you find good vascularity, you find that it is your sutures are holding well, there is no friability, then you don't need a covering stoma.
Sir, majority of the patients in Uttarakhand, because of the geography, they present very late to our institute. They have been with the primary team somewhere in the mountains, and then they get referred to somebody, and then eventually they get referred to us. So we find that they're in a poor condition. So majority of the time, you just bring out the stoma, wash the peritoneum, and let them recover. That's what we end up doing for the left side. For the right side, sometimes they are in a good enough shape to be able to do excision at the same time.
My boss used to do a Hartmann's for left-sided tumors, which I have stopped doing because going back in and doing the
very
anastomosis
difficult.
is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Because the fibrosis occurs and the whole bowel will be stuck in that area. So we have since stopped doing the Hartmann's procedure. Even my boss has stopped doing it. And most of the time we do primary anastomosis with or without covering ileostomy. That's what we have changed to. Okay, Avinash is asking if in a case of clear rectum disease does not respond to NCRT, what would be next plan? Addition, FOLFOX, or going for surgery? Avinash, if in a CA rectum it does not respond to CTRT, then if it is operable, it is suggested that you operate, because addition of chemotherapy is not going to help. So if the disease is still operable, it is better to operate. I don't know about addition of FOLFOX after CTRT if there is no response to radiation. I don't know if anybody uses it, because then it's like giving up on the patient. So you have given CTRT, patient has not responded. You give FOLFOX, then what? Then after that what? So probably it is more of a palliative approach. In a NACRT, you should be able to operate. There is no reason why you should not be able to operate. The only time you are not able to operate is when the disease progresses. So if the disease stays as much as it was, it should still be operable. Am I right or am I wrong?
Sir, I was asking if this was a case of say rectum with T3 involvement, that is circumferential resection margins were positive on MRI preoperatively,
Yeah.
and we give NACRT and still disease is T3 only. It has not CRM positivity is still there, and if NACRT there is no response, should we go for additional FOLFOX or surgery? You can attempt.
How is additional FOLFOX going to help?
Sir,
I don't know.
Okay.
Is it going to help?
Sir, actually guidelines, they say you should attempt FOLFOX for 2 months additional FOLFOX. Actually, we had operated one patient. Patient did not respond to initial NACRT. It was very less response. It was still CRM was positive on post CRT MRI, but we gave additional FOLFOX for 2 months. Patient responded and we operated on the patient.
I'll probably see where the disease is located. If the disease is posterior, I should not be too much worried about it, because I can have like disease is in the lower 5 centimeter and posteriorly located below the coccyx. I have an ample I can cut. Similarly, if the disease is going to ischiorectal fossa, I can excise the whole of the ischiorectal fossa. But if the disease is anteriorly located, which does not give me plane between seminal vesicles or the bladder or the prostate, then I probably will not consider surgery. Or if the disease is posteriorly located and located in the sacrococcygeal hollow, I probably will not go in and operate. So it will depend upon within the rectum where it is located. whether it is anterior, lateral, posterior, what are the organs it is close to. And even in T3, there are certain areas where you can get a very good margin, and there are certain areas where you cannot get a margin. So everything will depend upon location of the disease rather than the operative decision is individual. It actually cannot be generalized that all T3s are inoperable. We operate T4 also.
Okay.
T4s are also we are operating, especially the those which are reaching anal canal involving the ischiorectal fossas. We excise the skin, we excise the ischiorectal fossa. So you can go as wide as possible on the lateral side. It doesn't make much of a difference. And even if it is sitting at the coccyx, you can cut the coccyx actually. Above that sacrococcygeal hollow, you don't have a plane. So there the distance between the plexus and the tumor is less. And if there is a fixity, you have torrential bleeding. Some people even do cut the sacrum also out, just like you do for sacral tumors. So some people do excise that also. But then I personally feel that you may get a margin, but then the morbidity is much higher for that. So there it is probably an individual choice depending upon the patient, depending upon the location, that what you want to do. Because if the patient does not respond to FOLFOX, then what? Suppose 2 months of FOLFOX patient doesn't respond, then what are you going to do? Then you are going to put him on monoclonals. But basically, whatever you are going to do, it's going to be palliative. It's not going to be curative then, there onwards. So if you are not able to do a surgery, you are not able to cure the patient. That is personally, I feel that without surgery, patient cannot be cured. So if surgery is not there in the algorithm, the patient is only, the treatment is only palliative. It may continue for 30 months or 36 months, but then the patient is palliative only. Then there is nothing you can do. You don't get long-term survival in that case. Are you happy, Avinash?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir,
Anything
another
else?
question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, after LAR, after LAR, what's your protocol to take down the ileostomy? When are you doing it? After completion of adjuvant, or we can do it before adjuvant treatment?
See,
Ileostomy takedown, sir.
we normally do it only after completion of adjuvant. We do it only after completion of adjuvant, because it is important to give the adjuvant treatment first.
Okay, sir. Why do you need to take? Okay.
Huh? Because it doesn't matter whether you do it. See, the only problem with ileostomy or colostomy is that patient has to live with it a little longer.
Okay.
And now the basically 12 cycles of FOLFOX or 6 cycles of Capox, basically you are only talking about 18 weeks, isn't it? Or 6 months of FOLFOX. So let
Yes,
him
sir.
live with the colostomy for another six months, rather than risking distant metastasis, because the distant metastasis rate in left colon is much higher. So you have to take care of liver metastasis first rather than the colostomy. That can be explained to the patient very well. Because the moment you are going to attempt a colostomy closure before adjuvant, you are going to lose another 2 weeks minimum. Thank you, everybody. The next is going to be on Thursday, and I'll send the invitation on Wednesday.